Hi everyone, Shane, Gareth, Sanctuary Financial Planning. We're compiling a list of videos over the next coming days, weeks to assist people with getting correct information, guidance from professionals that will assist you, such as those working with tax, those working in pensions, those working in the healthcare system, to give you some professional ideas and opinions on what's happening now and over the next couple of months.
So we're going to be chatting to Darren Perrin, who's a chartered certified accountant, chartered tax advisor with over 15 years experience working predominantly with owner-managed businesses. He's managing director of Darren Perrin & Co Limited, located in Neath, South Wales. Daniel specialises in tax planning for clients, providing business advisory services in a number of key fields. The practice works with a number of businesses to embrace cloud-based accountancy tools, enabling them to run much more efficiently. Hi Dan, how are you?
Hi, very good.
Good,
well,
good.
Glad to have a break from the telephone calls for the last couple of days.
Yeah, I bet. I can imagine it's been a busy time for you at the moment.
Yeah, lots of nervous people, I think, out there. Lots of people worrying about their businesses, what they're going to be going back to, will they have a business? And the important thing is just don't panic at this point.
Dan, is it a thing that, as good and all as social media is, that those that are not as qualified as, say, the likes of you, scaremonger everyone else because they tell people what they heard from John down in the pub, and then it's sent out on social media and everyone begins to panic? Proper advice needs to be coming from the likes of yourself and not from friends of friends.
Yeah, I think the other problem we've hit in is people are sharing anything on social media, Facebook and things like that. But yeah, the important thing is that, I mean, what I would put on social media site is links directly to the Gov site, because it changes. You know, the advice we're giving today is something that's relevant just as of today.
Yeah, it's a changing, it's a constantly changing horizon at the moment. I think it was a good time to kind of do this now because there's so much, like Shane kind of touched on, you know, there's things out there on social media which some will be right, some will be wrong, a lot will be confusing, and just trying to help clear up some kind of ambiguity out there, really.
I think it is, and I think the biggest problem we got at the moment is the information out there is just guidance, and I'm saying that to clients, other accountants, anybody who's asking for advice, because it's guidance and it's limited guidance. I mean, there is clarification in certain areas coming every day, but some of the stuff, you know, I've got to put my hand up and say, we don't know until that point is actually cleared.
We're in the midst of a coronavirus pandemic. You know, it's unknown territory. Yeah, and not only is it affecting the health of people, but it is now starting to affect businesses, and it's going to be quite devastating for some small and medium-sized businesses around, you know, the UK. And in fairness to the Chancellor, you know, he has stepped up, and, you know, he put some big things out there at very kind of short notice. And I know he's been under a lot of criticism from a lot of people, but in fairness, I think what they've done so far has been really good, you know, positive. You know, and at the end of the day, unfortunately, not all of us will find something that will help us, but there's a lot out there. We'll link this to our blog in the show notes, which is on our website, which just covers off some of what the Chancellor released. Self-employed tax deferrals. So income tax payments due in July 2020 under the self-assessment system may be deferred until January 2021.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I'm stressing to anybody is that it's a deferral. You know, don't get into your head that it's something that's going to get written off. So, you know, what I'm saying to people is if you've budgeted the money to one side, you've got that money to use, please pay it, or at least part pay it, because what you don't want to be doing is pushing it off to January when you've got another balance in payment due, and, you know, you're going to get yourself into more trouble.
Self-employed income support scheme, after they announced they were going to put a package together for employed people, the Chancellor was keen to assure self-employed workers that they had not been forgotten. I know this one caused a lot of uproar, and I know you, Dan, had a lot of calls and a lot of messages about this one. So the Self-Employment Support Scheme will pay a taxable grant of self-employed people equivalent to 80% of the average monthly profits over the last 3 years. That's £2,500. And I know there's a lot about, with regards to profits, got to be under 50,000 and so on and so forth. There's a lot more detail on the .gov website for this, but does anyone want to touch on that then?
Yeah, I mean, the key thing I'm saying to people is, don't flood your accountants for the last 3 years, because that's the one thing that they could do without at this time of all the problems. What you've got to think of is HMRC are due to contact people to tell them if they're eligible for the grant. Okay. I can't give you an idea of timescale because we just don't know. But those profit figures that you're looking at, they've already got. If you're up to date with your tax returns, if everything's in, then you're fine. They know exactly what you've earned. The other thing that they've actually turned around and said is if you have missed that deadline back in January, you've got till, I think it's about the 20th of April, there or thereabouts, to get that return in, and get that return in, because if you haven't submitted it, then you may not be eligible to get any grants or anything. And it's the 3 years prior to this current tax year. So don't rush to get your tax return for 1920 done. If everything's ready, that's fine. It can be done, but it is the 3 years prior that they're going to take, or less if you haven't been trading for 3 years.
Yeah, that's good to know, because I know that was the one which has caused a lot of kind of, I think, anxiety for people as well, about around this one, because, it isn't going to cover everyone, and maybe they will come out at some point with something which will cover more people, but there is going to be a point where, not everyone is going to get something, and that is the fact. Universal credit, self-employed workers who have seen a significant reduction in earnings are able to claim universal credit provided they meet the usual eligibility criteria.
Yeah, that one's an interesting one. I've got to be honest. The universal credit, I've got a couple of clients who rang me last week, and they've actually tried to apply for universal credits because at that point that's all they were eligible for. And they've literally gone onto the website at 2 o'clock in the afternoon to make the application and still been there 2 o'clock in the morning. Be patient with the systems. They're doing the best they can to process them. They will assess it on all of your household income and other bits and pieces, other factors as well. So the important thing you've got to look at is, be honest with them, because the last thing you want is give them wrong information, because it will come back on you, and see what you're eligible for.
So next, what I'll touch on, I will do a separate video on this, is mortgage payment holidays. It's one that's come about. It's not just for residential, it's for buy-to-let landlords as well. They can apply for it. But I'm going to do a separate video on it because there's a few things people need to be aware of. And if I'm honest, I would say if you don't need to take it, don't take it. Mm-hmm. But, if you really do feel you need to, the option's there. Just need to check that it doesn't affect your credit rating. So that's the big one.
I think a lot of people are realizing or not realizing that as much as they understand the words deferment, they still can't, a lot of people don't grasp that you can defer the payment of something, but that doesn't mean you have got rid of it. And that goes for the tax or the mortgage holiday. It is just a deferment of payment, not a cancellation of those payments that you're due.
Yeah, business as usual. It's not, it's not there to kind of use for other kind of means. Let's be sensible, and probably this is a good time to look at your finances and say, well, actually, what have I been spending my money on, and what can I cut back on, and be a bit more sensible. Another one, then down, which we come across, is Her Majesty Revenue and Customs Time to Pay service. If you're self-employed, struggling with your finances and have outstanding tax liabilities, you may be eligible to receive tax support from HMRC's Time to Pay service.
Yeah, they are being a bit more generous than they would at normal times. The important thing is be honest with them. They've Time to Pay sort of service will link in a bit with your VAT deferment, because if you've got a VAT liability due within the next few months, then you can get an automatic deferral on that. So don't waste time trying to get hold of them, asking for time to pay if it's VAT. Read the guidance on the Gov site, which is changing daily, but you just check you're within the date scale that they're offering and you've got that deferment. But a little tip, if you're a VAT registered business, cancel any direct debits, because they will still charge the direct debits even though the deferment's in place. They've openly said that and invited businesses to cancel them.
Okay.
But other taxes, obviously, just being sensible,
Sure.
You can get, again, it comes back to that deferment. You might be able to get some time to pay on your PAYE, but it's just a case of you've got to catch up with it at some point.
I think a key thing from this is that, a lot of these measures are not free, and we're going to pay for it at some point.
Yes.
So I think that's the realism here is, there's been a reduction in corporation tax over the years and so on and so forth. But we've got to bear in mind that once we come out of this, these things are going to be paid. They have to be paid back somehow. So the Chancellor will probably make some extreme tweaks in the future.
Yeah, and I think, it's just something that's going to take years to get over, I think, and something we're going to be paying for in 4 or 5 years' time.
Big question. Loads and loads of people don't understand the word furloughed. When will businesses see the payments for furloughed employees into their bank accounts?
That's a good question. And basically, the guidance is saying that those payments should be made end of April. But what we've got to remember, and I'm saying this to any employer out there, that HMRC systems are geared for taking tax, but not actually paying it back to businesses. Yeah. And that's from their own guidance, not from anything else. And so they're working towards the end of April. But what we've got to bear in mind is there's a lot of information that's got to be uploaded every 3 weeks through a portal which they haven't yet developed. Okay. So they've got to be able to get all the information, process it, get the business's bank details and get that by backs to the business. So what I'm trying to say to businesses is if you think cash is going to be tight, then you need to be thinking about loans or basically thinking about using any savings just to keep the business going. Okay. You know, you need to look at your finance options and not leave yourself short in case you work into the end of April. It could be May, it could be June.
How are the self-employed profits calculated for these purposes?
Yeah, the guidance is quite specific on this. For the self-employed profits, they're working on the basis you've been self-employed for 3 full tax years, tax year 18-19 and the 2 years prior. What they're basically doing is taking an average of the profits for those 3 years. If you're a relatively new business and 18-19, for example, is your first year, then they'll just take that 1 year. But typically it's 3 years. And the important thing is make sure they've got accurate information on your state of affairs, your tax returns are all in, because this is the system that will be used to calculate it.
Okay, cheers. What if I'm relatively new at this business? Is there anything I can claim or what can I claim?
Yeah, that's a key question. I mean, if you're a new business and started trading in 1920, based on the government's guidance as it is now, the guidance is saying you have to have submitted an 18-19 tax return, which takes you up to the 5th of April 19. So if you started trading after then, if we follow the guidance as it's written, you wouldn't be eligible for anything. Unless, of course, you may fall in the category of these £10,000 grants or £25,000 grants. And what I'm directing people to do is wait to see if the local authority contact you on those, because they'll administer those. If not, then you need to think about perhaps contacting them or looking if they've got an online form that you can just fill out just to see if you're eligible for something.
Okay. How easy is it to claim universal credits?
I think if you can get on the system, it can be a bit easier, but with the floods of people trying to do it at the moment, the procedures are fairly easy, but what I'm saying to people is make sure you've got everything to hand. If you're going to spend 4 hours to get on a system and you haven't got any of the information to hand, that's a waste of time. Get on there, give them all the information, and they'll probably invite you for a telephone interview at some point, and also make sure you've got your household income, because a lot of people are assuming I'm going to get universal credits, but then their partners' wives are earning over the threshold and they're entitled to nothing. So just have all that information. If there's a calculator on the site, put that through first to see if you're entitled to anything.
Okay, brilliant. Do directors get SSP, statutory sick pay?
That's a good question, because there's a lot of controversy around this one at the moment. I mean, if we go back to Companies Act, I mean, the director of a company is an officer and, strictly speaking, could be construed as being an employee. So by virtue of that, if they're earning over the relevant limit, then which is just under £120, then they can make a statutory sick pay claim like anybody else.
Okay, interesting. One last question, probably. What is happening with the wrongful trading rules for companies at this moment in time?
Yeah, this is a good question, because a lot of people are getting worried about this. Typically what would happen is if you wrongfully trade in, so in other words, you've got debts and you reasonably can't afford to pay them, then you should close the business at that point. Okay. And if we did that, we'd have a problem in this country at the moment. So what the government have said is they're relaxing some of the rules on this to enable businesses to either take a sabbatical from trading and still be able to come back in, trade in the future, or basically carry on trading as best they can. And if they incur some debts along the way, as long as the reasonable expectation is that they're still going to be trading in the future, the rules aren't going to be as strict as they were. And there's a little bit of guidance out there on the Gov site around that. It's definitely worth, anybody with a limited company, definitely worth having a read of that.
Brilliant. Cracking. Thank you very much for those answers, Dan.
All right, so that was great, Dan. Thanks for that. I think quite some insightful information there. You know, we're in the midst of something which is unknown, unheard of. We've never experienced post-war times, you know, and it's interesting times, and we're strong enough, I think, as a nation to get through this. But we've got to all stay positive and stick together, and you know, and the big thing I see a lot around at the moment is be kind. You know, I think that's a big thing, because there's still people out there wanting to shout and scream at people, but you know, we're all in this together. You know, let's plow on, let's be positive, and let's kind of move forward.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah. If we pull together as a nation, we can get through it quicker.
Humanity is a wonderful thing.
The few things I've picked up on there, Dan, is HMRC seems to be stretched at the moment. Please don't get annoyed with them. Bide your time. You know, get the iPad out if you're on hold and watch Netflix, because you could be on hold for quite a while. But everyone is trying to access the same type of systems at the moment, so it is just a numbers game. And understanding is easy, doing is hard. You know, we know we have to change our ways, but it's going to be more difficult to change it. And finally, don't listen. I was going to say to the man in the pub, but as the pubs are closed at the moment, don't listen to the man in the pub when you go down to the pub eventually, or social media. If you're unsure of something and you want clarification, go on to the correct websites, or alternatively, get hold of you, Dan, if you're happy enough to take calls from people. And if you want to drop your number and that at the end, we can give that out to people if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I'm here to support the small businesses and help them, well, small and large businesses, as much as you can. And the important thing is just getting through it. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and you know, just keep checking that guidance, because it is regularly updated. So don't work on something you've read last week, because the chances are it's totally changed.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We'll put some show notes at the end anyway, where if anyone wants to contact Dan, they can do. We'll also link through some of the .gov websites, also to myself and Shane. And if anyone's got any questions, you know, kind of pick the phone. We've actually got a link on our website, which we'll put on there, where you can book a reassurance call with us as well, if anyone wants to kind of do that, where we can chat through just general stuff. Yeah, it's interesting times. And the big thing, stay positive. That's what we're doing. You know, everyone's got to find new ways of working. You know, luckily ourselves, including you, Dan, are very modern thinking businesses. So we're kind of all set and ready to do anything digital, and we can continue as we kind of are. You know, but the big thing is, stay safe. You know, your health is paramount at the moment, and the government will help us out. You know. Yeah.
Dan, thanks very much for taking the time today. I appreciate we both appreciate you spending a few minutes chatting to us. I can imagine that the phone is on silent and is buzzing as we speak. So we'll let you get back to it, and hopefully, if anyone needs to speak to you, they can get direct contact with you.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks a lot. Thanks,
Cheers. A lot of key information to kind of take out of that.
Yeah, the good thing with Dan is he knows his stuff, and people need to realise that if they're unsure, go to him or someone like him. Everyone's going to be afraid now. It's absolutely okay to be afraid. We're all scared, frightened, unsure, because it's a crazy 3-4 weeks we've been into. But don't listen to social media. Don't listen to people down the road and all that. If you're unsure of anything which comes to light in regards to a business or your tax, speak to the professionals. Dan is there, you know, day and night. He's more than willing, as we've known over the past while, to answer the phone, take an email, just get in contact. You know, everyone needs some help now. Don't be afraid to ask for it.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of stuff on .gov. You know, if you've already got an accountant, pick the phone up to your accountant. They should be able to answer some of these questions for you. You know, if you haven't, you know, maybe you need to have a look around someone local, or like I say, we'll put down details at the end. You know, you'd be happy to kind of chat through with you what it kind of is. Because there's a lot of people out there who'll do their own self-assessment tax returns online, but won't have any kind of support outside that. Yeah, and that's kind of, you know, the social media is a big kind of thing. So to speak to professionals, that's what it's about. That's what they're there for. So we're looking to do a series of these, as we said. Myself and Shane are going to be interviewing other people we think would be relevant for business owners and our clients and anyone who wants to listen, really, during these kind of times, because there's a lot of scaremongering out there. So we just want to try and help clear up some ambiguity and look after our nation out there.